Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this narration of the web novel The Nature of Predators. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 8. Memory Transcription. Subject, Captain Sovlin, Federation Fleet Command. Date, Standardized Human Time, August 21, 2136. Making an enemy of a starship captain was ill-advised, even in these trying times. My astonishment at being evicted from Vendel territory by force still hadn't faded. There was no reason for flagrant disrespect, especially when we were responding to their cry for help. When Governor Tarver started waving missiles around, it felt personal. It was fair to say I harbored a permanent grudge against them. Tarver's behavior could be chalked up to his war-induced psychosis, if not for the mayhem that followed. Without a word as to why, the Vendel withdrew from the Federation's military. Their borders were sealed, cutting off crucial supplies and outposts. Any ships seeking entry were turned back at gunpoint. Alien diplomats and visitors were barred from leaving Vendel space, or even contacting their homeworlds. It was like something from a dystopian novel. Division in our ranks was the last thing we needed. With how the Orcs had been pressing lately, a diplomatic resolution was the desired outcome to any crisis, if at all possible. But when it took begging for the Vendel to provide proof of life, it didn't seem there was room for negotiation. Tarver hadn't offered any time frame, terms, or conditions for a release. This was no temporary standoff either. It had been over a month, and none of their actions were rescinded. The Federation were a lot of dithering idiots, afraid of ruffling feathers, but even their patience had limits. Major players, including my Gojiri Union, were incensed at our people's hostage status. Judging by the protests across the galaxy, I wasn't the only one who felt compelled to take matters into my own paws. Whatever the Vendel Republic was hiding, I was determined to get to the bottom of it. Sovlin! Piri, the Gojid Prime Minister, sighed in irritation. She must have seen my eyes gloss over. You still with me? Or are you off plotting revenge in that thick head of yours? I blinked several times. Sorry, ma'am. As I was saying, I'm disappointed in you. You went off snooping in the Vendel without permission, and used Federation resources to do so. What do you have to say for yourself? Piri asked. I haven't crossed their border. I pointed a claw at the viewport, towards an invisible threshold. If we decide to break our people out by force, we need the facts. The Federation has a right to know what the Vendel are up to. What makes you think they're up to anything? Tarver isn't stupid enough to commit diplomatic suicide. Not without a cause, I mean. The resolution condemning their actions passed by unanimous vote. She's lucky that we haven't done more than place their membership on probation. Piri tilted her head, weighing the circumstances for herself. Shutting down all communications overnight and banning travel looked draconian to me. The drastic nature of it all did not make sense. I couldn't fathom what quelled the populace's rebellion. The entire galaxy was iced out for an unknown transgression. Even the Vendel's closest allies were left baffled and in the dark. Talk of warfare was brewing, as much as the Federation wished for it to not be so. Why would Tarver invite an extreme fallout? What could make losing every partner worth it? I don't disagree. The Vendel would need a serious incentive to draw our ire, the politician said. They've always been loyal to the Federation, until now. What's your take? Well, I would think that it was cowardice if they had run off, I growled. It's as though they're trying to make enemies of us. It can't be that. Not with the Orcs breathing down their necks every hour of every day. Piri focused her gaze on me, a disapproving glint in her eyes. I should reprimand you, Sovlin, but I'd like some answers myself. What have you learned through your, prying? The Vendel are still letting someone into their territory. I'm not sure if it's Federation member. A group of transports docked at a fringe outpost today. They weren't chased away like the rest of us. And you're sure that they were allowed to stay? I'm positive. They got an escort from the ceremonial fleet. Tarver's personal parade. I'm just not close enough to make out their subspace origin. Not, without crossing the border. So that's why you called me now. You want my blessing, in case you get caught. And I hear about it the hard way. That's, one way of putting it, ma'am. May I poke around? Very well. I want to report as soon as you learn anything. And Sovlin, don't make me regret this. The video feed cut out. I eyed space ahead of us with giddiness and gave my first officer a tail thump that meant proceed. The posting was filled by Russell, a veteran of the Colchian Commonwealth. There would be no objections to my plan from him. His allegiance was to the Federation first, and to unveiling the truth about the Venlil's misdeeds was a collective interest. Anyone with eyes could see that their behavior was off. The crew leapt into action as Russell declared a new course for the fringes of Venlil space. We could hide behind the guise that we were patrolling and strayed into their territory by mistake. All I needed was to get in range of their signal interceptors. Local broadcasts could offer some clues if subspace readings proved unattainable. Our warship pivoted, angling us towards the forbidden region. I settled down in the captain's chair and monitored the bridge. We would drift over the border gradually, in the interest of stealth. If we were able to pull this mission off, I would be acclaimed for my initiative. Satisfaction swelled in my chest at the thought of adding it to my repute. "Sir, you might want to look at the scanner data," Russell barked. "Venlil patrol ship heading straight for us." I slammed my paw down in frustration. "We're still on our side of the border. They can't object to us patrolling our own damn space." According to the computer, the patrol vessel was on an intercept course towards us. The sensor data suggested their speed was at max velocity, well above the safety recommendations. They were going to burn out on their engines, pushing them to that degree. How had they gotten wise to our plans? My call with the Prime Minister Piri was encrypted, so I didn't see how they could have listened in. "Radio silence from that little boat," Russell noted. "What do you want to do?" My spines bristled. "Order them to change course at once, and have weapons in standby. We're not going to let that shit heap stop us." From the viewport of the highlights magnification, I could make out a tiny dot racing towards our position. Its course was erratic, as though the stabilizers were close to giving out. Several hails had gone unanswered, and the Venlil ship failed to deviate from its course. The patrol vessel paid no regard to the border, breezing into our territory without any declaration. Silence fell over the bridge. The tension was palpable. I knew my crew still felt some sense of attachment to the Venlil after years of steadfast alliance. It was for their sake that I wasn't striking this craft down on the spot. "Fire a warning shot and hail them one final time," I ordered. "If there's no acknowledgement, I want them finished." 3 plasma rounds were lobbed just above the patrol ship's flight path. Its pace slowed, as though the pilot was second-guessing their decisions. The hesitation was brief, though. It returned to its stubborn sprint moments later. Had the Venlil fallen victim to some neurological plague? That would explain everything. I gritted my teeth. "Kill them! They need to be taught a lesson." "Wait, sir. We're detecting 2 more vessels on their tail. Oxor bombers," my first officer said. At last, a decent explanation for why the Venlil refused to turn back. If those reptile bastards were after them, I suppose there was no retreating. Why they were unresponsive to our hails was another question, especially with the delicate situation between our species. The patrol ship's engine splattered, and the pilot coaxed it to a resting position. The vessel swiveled around to face the Oxor bombers. It looked like an insect compared to any warship. Yet its size did not prove a deterrent. As soon as the enemy pursuers became visible, it began hurling plasma rounds in their direction. The caliber was insufficient to trade blows with the Greys, but the helmsman didn't seem to care. The coughing engine was prodded back to life to give them a push in the enemy's direction. Yep, neurological plague, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. The Republic craft dipped down to avoid return fire and pressed on with its advance. In spite of myself, I was impressed with the pilot's ability to overpower their instincts. Whatever my personal feelings towards the Venlil, this bravery was unmistakable, and to be honest, very unlike them. Their accuracy was lacking, however, and the Oxor ships absorbed any hits that landed. "Sir, should we intervene?" my first officer asked. "How many times have we saved them already?" I grumbled. "And for what?" Russell waged a grasp at me. "You wouldn't let the Oxor kill innocent people over a grudge with Tarva?" "I suppose not. Advance the Oxor bombers and line them up with the railguns." I could sense the crew's relief from their eagerness to carry out the new orders. Perhaps they'd been worried that my previous threat to let the Greys eat the Vendel was serious. It would take a more depraved captain than I to spectate a predator's hunt. The lights on the bridge dimmed, which was confirmation that the railgun was charging. In high enough doses, a blast of concentrated energy could chew through the Arxor armor. There was a reason the Federation invested in such slow, gargantuan ships. Powering effective weapons required a large backbone. A radiant beam sailed through the inky sky, connecting with the enemy vessel. Pleasure rolled down my spines as our plasma lanced through the engine. There was one Arxor bomber finished in a fiery flash. Our railgun would take several seconds to recharge, so I hoped the Vendel ship could hang on a little longer. The pilot's crazed maneuvers could only do so much for evasion. The final enemy was spewing quite a lot of plasma torrent at them, unrelenting in their hunt. One round clipped the patrol ship on the bow. It lurched forward and sat dazed in the Arx's sights. My crew's efforts to rouse the railgun gained a new sense of urgency. The reptilians rounded on our former allies, salivating to deliver the finishing blow. The Vendel were wounded further by a clean hit to the propulsion system. A dry plume flickered out, and the patrol ship laid paralyzed, without mobility. The vessel was floating tomb. The pilot's fire had ceased too. There was no telling if they had lost weapons, or if it meant the worst. A surge of relief flooded my chest as our weapons flashed back online. There wasn't a second to spare, or any margin for error. The crew scrambled to unleash a hellfire. An energy lance penetrated the night sky, and I prayed that it would arrive in time. While the Vendel were traitors, I preferred them to the affront to sapience known as the Arxor. Our railgun strike pierced the Arxor shell, splicing them clean in half. With its dying breath, the Predator's discharge of barrage of plasma, a parting gift for their quarry. There was nothing we could do to intervene. All eyes turned to the unfolding scene with collective horror. The Vendel craft was idle, dead in the waters. The fireballs bore down on the cruiser, one after the other, closing the distance in a blur. Somehow, our sensors didn't record a direct impact. The blistering shots shaved its hull, straying wide by a hair's breadth. I imagine the occupants could all but smell the smoke. Talk about a near miss, I mused. The railgun must have jolted the Arxor just enough. Cheers echoed through the bridge, though the celebration was premature. The Vendel ship sustained serious damage and wasn't showing any signs of activity. Vendel ship, do you copy? I asked over the comms frequency. We can send medical assistance if needed. There was silence. My opportunism flicked back to life as I remembered the purpose of our foray. Nobody had communicated with anyone inside the Republic border for weeks. This was the perfect opportunity to force the Vendel to talk, to discover the truth behind their reclusiveness. We could start by asking some questions about the mysterious visitors. If you can hear me, Vendel ship, you are now in the custody of the Galactic Federation. Any attempt to flee will be met with extreme force, as will any efforts at resistance. I paused, making sure to emphasize my last words. Prepare to be boarded! End of chapter. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons. Casper Arnholtz, Maxwell, Barkey, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Lord Azrakal, and Arcadian.